Into that. There's a line Angel has of like, I couldn't carry a gun. Why? Because it's something that happened once. And then it's never talked about. And us being able to dig into that, like, what was that? And how do we convey it with one line? It definitely, we definitely have stylized the production. And we've definitely tried to, for me, I've definitely tried to connect like the now, the 2026, because the play is told through several flashbacks.
And welcome back to the podcast, the Broad Street Review podcast. This is season 10. I still can't believe that we are in season 10. You'll notice today I'm not trapped in that red box. I'm here in my home studio. And like I said, 10 seasons. I told everyone before, normally we do like 22 episodes a season. We're on episode 25 today, and it is February. So we are kicking along. There's just so much to talk about in our community this season. So make sure that you are out there buying those tickets and supporting those organizations. Today, we're here virtually going to Stagecrafters to talk about Jesus Hopped the A Train, written by Stephen Adley Gurgis, directed by Dave Ebersol. And we're here with some members of the production, and we're just going to do some quick introductions. We'll start with John.
Hey, I'm John Owens. I play Lucius.
All right, Carlos.
Hey, yes, I'm Carlos Jagad. Yeah, and I will be playing Angel Cruz.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'm Dave Ebersol. I'm the director. And Darnelle, thank you so much for having me back.
Absolutely. It's great to have you back. And thanks for reaching out again, of course. Yeah, so this production, so before we get into it, let's learn a little bit more about John and Carlos, because this is your first time on our podcast. And, so tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you made it to Stagecrafters for this production.
I'll let John go first.
Okay. Yeah. I'm from Philadelphia originally. I studied a little bit of everywhere. I studied at UArts, at American Repertory Theater, and I found my way to Stagecrafters because I live in Mount Airy. Mm-hmm. And I drive by this place all the time. I see the shows all the time, want to be a part of this. And it's so nice having something like this in the community and also doing a play like this mountain of a play.
Say the least.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Carlos?
I didn't really start anywhere specific. I actually started at Stagecrafters in 2019, where David actually was the one who got me back into theater. I did theater back in high school. I didn't go training or anything. I didn't go to any school for it. And I remember there was a show at Stagecrafters in 2019 called Spinning Into Butter. And Dave was like, they're looking for a part, specifically Latin of ethnicity. I was like, sure, why not? I did theater in high school. Let's do it. Ever since then, it just kind of skyrocketed. I've just been doing shows and shows and shows. And then there was this one show that Dave talked to me about, which obviously, Jesus Hopped the A Train. Told him that's interesting. I don't think I would ever want to do that. Do you see how many lines that character has to do? I'm like, I don't want to do that. Lo and behold, here I am doing it. And it's been such an amazing ride with this cast, with the production team. The theater has been amazing, and just local theater, community theater, even Philadelphia or wherever it is. It's just been enlightening in my life. So that's why I keep doing it. I'm passionate about it, and and the story just tells itself.
Great. So let's talk about Jesus Hopped the A Train. Dave, do you want to tell us about the piece?
Sure.
I was thinking about it when you reached out. I said, yeah, this would be a good chat because it's been a long time since I've seen this piece. So I think it'd be interesting to have it back in the area. Yeah. So tell us about Jesus Hopped the A Train.
Obviously written by Stephen Adley Gurgis. The original production was directed by Philip Seymour Hoffman with the Labyrinth Theater Company. Late 1999, early 2000 is really where it made its premiere in New York. And it's very much of that time. A lot of the themes and a lot of the language is very much of that time. It is about a young Puerto Rican man named Angel Cruz, who shoots a cult leader to save his friend out of their church. He's arrested, and while he's awaiting trial at Rikers Island, he's placed next to a serial killer named Lucius Jenkins, who John plays, who's about to be executed, but he has found God. Angel's public defender really believes that she can get a win for him. And Lucius has different thoughts and plans on what redemption should look like for people, redemption should look like in prison. And a lot of the piece is almost a battle between what redemption and responsibility and taking accountability looks like. So that's the quick synopsis.
And so how did this become part of Stagecrafters season? Did you bring it, or was it already here and then all of you got involved?
Well, as Carlos mentioned, I have been wanting to do this piece with him for a couple years now, and I've submitted it to 2 places. It got turned down, and their play selection committee they had picked it, and it was their former artistic director reached out to me and said, I know you've been trying to get this done, so submit for it, and I did. So here we are. I brought Carlos into the process, and I was very happy. I'm delighted that John has joined the cast as well.
Great. So you've been talking about this before, but for Carlos and John, did you know anything about this piece before getting started? Like, what were your thoughts walking into it? I know, Carlos, you talked about how many lines there were already, but like, what were your thoughts walking in? And then tell me about your thoughts after the first table read.
Doc, do you want to go first?
Nah, you got that. Go ahead.
Like I said, when I first just read a piece of it. David actually he's like, hey, can you just read this? And I read it, and I was just looking a little bit of it, and he was explaining to me, and I'm just like, yeah, I read it. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of lines. That's crazy. But it was just in my voice when I was reading it. Once we got to the table read, it was just a completely different beast. It was just almost like, wow, this play is intense. This play is like crucial to the times, and all I kept thinking about was like, I didn't think that this was going to be what this was. Like you said, it's a beast of a show. I did not think that this was going to be the monster that this play is. Really, what sells it is the performances. Is really invoking the words, because this plays really is just all words. It's just all words. That's it, right? So without actually putting the feeling, putting the attitude, invoking those words, I don't think this play would come to life. And we got the right cast to do it. We definitely got the right cast to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I found this many, many, many moons ago. The first Gergis play I read was The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. And that just blew me away. And from there, I was like, I need to read everything you've written. Which led me to Jesus Hop the A Train next. And just seeing that battle of belief and faith and what belief truly is and what faith really is. And like kind of the rightest right and wrongest wrong. And like how you can receive the right message from the wrong messenger. Like that just, it did something to my Catholic school trained heart. So when I saw Dave was directing it, I had to be a part of it. I talked to my family. I said, look, if I can book this, I might disappear for a bit. They're like, all right, you do what you got to do. Yeah. And to like try to find those dark places,
Yeah. So thinking about that, can you let us in a little bit of your process? Like, what do you think about? You've read this first table read, and now you're thinking about your character more. Like, what are you doing inside? Like, what are you thinking about in your head? In terms of like how to now stop reading this script and start, presenting as Lucius.
Yeah, for that's been really tricky. I'm just, you scour the play, you try to find little bits of details, and then there's the tough part of deciphering what is true in what Lucius says and what's not true, where he's trying to get Angel to do what he wants and believe what he wants him to believe, and trying to figure out when is Lucius being vulnerable, when is Lucius being honest, and in doing that, taking the time to sit down and really, I'll say, meditate on what would drive a person to do this? What does it take for this to be acceptable? Because he does some hard things. He does some horrific things. And just giving myself the permission to go there. And then being able to have a life raft to pull me back out, looking at Carlos and being like, all right, we're good. We got this. And having that tether back to this reality. And just taking the time to like really meditate and fantasize so that when I say it, I don't just sound like Joe from up the block, just chit chatting about, oh yeah, I did such and such and such and such. It's like, no, this has to be an actual killer.
There's an interesting connection when you think about Angel is at Rikers because, he shot a cult leader who brainwashed his friend. But now you're in prison where no one can be trusted. And it's like brainwashing is coming around full circle.
Yeah.
It's like this, that, or at least that thought of it too. And so it's interesting how you can look at it and see those sides. It's like the same thing that's a fear and a protection is also the reason he's now in this space.
Yeah.
Having sort of the same relationship.
Yeah. And it's funny how like one religion would be acceptable and one religion is not. And seeing that play out of like, Reverend Kim did ABCXYZ. And then Lucius is sitting there going, the sun is great, isn't it? Come on. I have the light of God in me and on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave, I'm sure you've experienced other Stephen L. Gurgis pieces. Have you noticed a through line in these works, like through line in this piece that carries through another, or is just very like, this is Stephen Adley Gurgis here?
Well, he has a lot of, almost all of his plays. There's something about redemption. There's something about trying to kind of sort out the guilt that people carry with them, maybe trying to release that. He said when they did a revival of this in, I don't know, 2017, 2018. Angel is very much representative of him and his struggles with religion. Is there a higher power, growing up, taking accountability for the choices that you make when you're younger. And he said when he came back to the play, he was still struggling with all of those things. And I think that's really indicative of all of his work. From Jesus was one of his earlier works. I think it's the really one that made his name. He's gone on to do a whole lot of other things. He's about to do the now his name is escaping me. It's a Broadway version of it was a famous movie. I have tickets for this, so this is terrible. I can't think of the name right now. But
we'll pick it up.
Yeah. But I'm drawn to it because I relate to it a whole lot. It doesn't leave the audience with an easy way out, and it actually forces the audience to really confront some things in themselves. And he does it in such a way that is incredibly entertaining. He's presenting a lot of these dark subjects packaged in a very, very entertaining, wonderful, darkly humorous way. There plays a mountain of text for sure, but there's a rhythm to it. And once you get in that rhythm, you realize like he takes you on a journey. So I feel like you really have to trust what he puts on the page, even if it's, it feels like this constant flow of speech, that it takes you somewhere. Dog Day Afternoon. Yes. I'm saying a preview of it in March.
Oh, I have to put that on my radar now. Yeah. I only have a couple of Broadway shows in the lineup now. Take us into the rehearsal room, and it's hard to prepare a show for the stage in a vacuum. So talk about the process in rehearsal while the world is still happening, while 2026 is presenting itself, while the news cycle is continuing to try our patience, while we are not in the full first year of a very tumultuous administration. So talk about that as you approach this piece in the rehearsal room.
Well, they're two two major things happening kind of outside of this piece that was written in 2000. The original text, it gives a date for one of the characters' ultimate fates. It gives a date in the future without trying to spoil it if you don't know, right? Where he went back and revised it at some point, and the date is now 2026, which was, my ASM said to me, did you change that? When we first had to read it. And I said, no, it was always a 2030, 38. But what does that look like now, having that date set at the very end of the play? What that looks like right now is that we have a new mayor in New York who is dealing with closing Rikers Island down and having to do that and ran on that. We have the mayor also just like last week or a couple days ago appointed a former inmate of Rikers as the correction commissioner and looking at trying to take on that system in a more compassionate way, which is, for me, like at the ending of this play, and it helped me kind of figure out, like, there's a little hope there. So there's a whole lot of things contextualizing around this happening in the news that is remind us, like, the people who are now in power were very loud then as well. But that has taken us some interesting places. I'll let the other two gentlemen fill the rest.
Yeah, there was a point in rehearsal where Lucius has the line of it's funny people didn't start paying attention until white people started dropping. And how true that's been for so long, especially recently with everything happening, with cell phones and everything. It's like, okay, y'all didn't know that this has been happening to us when we protest for so long, but now it's an issue. Cool.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on everything that was just saying too, even with Angel, right? He does mention even a lot how this person who's in power, the only reason why they're in power is because they have money. They have the money to be in power. And that is very relevant to how things are actually going in right now in the times that we are living. If you don't have money, you kind of don't matter. At least that's the perception that is the world that we live in, right? And it's crazy. This play is written a long time ago, a while ago, and it still applies today. And that's the beauty of Stephen Alberta's play, is that he writes for the people that don't have that voice, that are not being heard, and the real people that are really going through real situations, morals, whatever you want to use.
I do want to add in there that when somebody recently said to me, "Oh, you're directing that play. It's so not relevant right now," and I think it's shocking that they made that statement. The person who made that statement, because you look at Luigi Mangione, right, shooting the Universal Healthcare CEO, and how he was applauded for that, right? How he's applauded for that, and just recently, we're in a cultural conversation about, is that murder justified in some way? And what Angel does in trying to save his friend out of this cult that is based off of the Moonies, who were infamous for snatching people off the street and keeping people against their will. Was there some justification for that? But if there was justification for that, where's the accountability lie? So I think this play is more timely than it ever has been, actually.
Yeah. It's also interesting that you bring up Luigi Mangione, because we talk about the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, people are desperate, and they're looking for hope. Like, this is why people cling to religion, and they gravitate towards religion when they feel like they've hit sort of a rock bottom. They need something to hold them. And they also want to hear messages of hope. Somebody has to understand their plight, and then they sort of relate to them. They gravitate to them, and then whatever they say, they will just follow. Case in point, and it's also interesting how the mindset of society shifts depending on who is accused. So, for example, Luigi Maggione, arguably looks like a model, and so everybody can't see that he's a murderer. I mean, alleged. But it's like no one even wants to see it. And I guess there was like an attempt to free him like recently, which failed, of course, but also the way he carries himself in court and so on. And it just leads people are easily swayed is what I'm saying. It's like, but you do have to question, if his skin was a little darker, would we be feeling the same way? And if it was different, why? And so there's just layers and layers of questions that come up to things like, the questions about why Rikers is still open. It's just really interesting. Oh yeah, you're right. To talk about the relevance of this piece. I mean, that's why I said, can you speak to the news cycle? Because yeah, I mean, you should have said, I'm a theater artist. I will find the relevance.
For sure, but like
It's like, come
when it's
on.
right in the headlines, right there, right? It's right there, right? I could for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll find the
It's
relevance.
crazy. It's crazy to even hear that because exactly what does a killer look like? Why does a killer need to look a specific way? Does killer mean that you have to be in a certain class, in order to fit that mold of a killer? You have two characters here. And if see in the play, you hear Lucius's backstory, where he lived, where he came from, right? And then you hear the backstory of where Angel killed and lived and where he came from. And they both, one did it justifying for it because it felt right. The other did it because it felt good, right? So there's different reasons. There's different backgrounds, different ethnicities, but people will call them killers because they don't look a certain way or did not come from a certain place of power or money or whatever. And that is, yeah. So yes, this is very relevant. It's very relevant to these times.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John and Carlos, now that you're in this production, are you talking to any of your friends or anybody close to you? And what are their thoughts of you being a part of this conversation?
In terms of this, I can speak for like my friends. I know that they're very excited to see this story, come to life. Like some never even heard of this show or this play, and some have. I think now more than ever, it's more important to tell the story, and I think that that's what they're more excited about, just to see, this side, just to see these characters, these real people given voices, and I think that that's where the conversation is at, and I think that that's where the conversation should be.
Yeah. How about you, John?
Well, my wife is excited to see it. She's an activist. So she has not read the play. She hasn't seen it, knows nothing about it, going in it blank slate. But from what I've told her, she's just deeply engaged, deeply interested because we both believe that there should be reform in the prison system. Who else? My friends, my theater friends, deeply interested, dying to see it. They love the play and they're happy to see me in it and they want to see what I can bring. My friends who are not theater folk, they love the story and they're just like, tell the story right and let us see what you do. Let us see. Let us see. Let us see.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos and John, I'll put this to you I'll put this to you both. What do you want people to know about your characters? Because regardless of the position that they're in, a great playwright writes great characters. And sometimes the dialogue is like, but he did kill some people, or you're just like, what do you want? Humanize your characters for our listeners.
For Angel, at least, uh, he is just somebody who comes from a hard life. He is all he knows is just how to work hard, how to take care of his family and friends. That's just what I gathered from the script, right? But he also doesn't believe he doesn't live in a world where how can God allow a lot of these bad things to happen, right? And then there's that struggle that he has with faith, and that struggle he has with, is there hope? And I think in being in prison is where he learned a little bit more about what he's capable of in terms of his strength, in terms of the evolution of stop thinking like a boy and let's be a man. And I think that that's where he's at the end of the play. I think at the end of the play, he's found hope, and in the beginning, and accepting that there are consequences to life. Certain choices, I'm sorry, certain choices that are being made. So there are consequences, and you have to accept that. And I think that that's what he's at. And I think that we've all experienced, and we can all understand that, when we go through something traumatic, there will be some kind of growth if you let it process and find the strength in it. So I think that's what Angel does at the end.
Okay.
I
John?
I feel as though Lucius is an example of what happens when there is no community and no help for someone with deep mental health issues. Like, this is the worst case scenario. He is it. And finding God is kind of his anchor back into reality. And all the drug and alcohol and other abuses that he did to try to self-medicate, there was no one there. There was really no one there. And when there is no community, when there is no safety net underneath, you're going to fall. And you're going to do some deeply disturbing things, especially if you're undiagnosed. And, things don't work out for Lucius, but
we're there for the ride
yeah.
to see how this plays out.
And what a ride it is.
Great. Yeah. Dave, I'll put the last question to you. What do you hope an audience takes away from this experience?
There, as a director, you look at a piece, especially a piece like this, that has been done a lot. And the public at large may not know it, but theater people know it, right? Or theater people at least have heard of it, right? And it's like it's like a banquet for actors, right? Like we've talked to the mountains of text, but the reason that actors are always drawn to this is because of the amazing, like we're just talking about the characters and all of the things like in their backstory, the little things that are subtly hinted at. There's a line Angel has of like, I couldn't carry a gun. Why? Because of something that happened once, and then it's never talked about. And us being able to dig into that, like what was that, and how do we convey it with one line? It definitely, we definitely have stylized the production, and we've definitely tried to. For me, I've definitely tried to connect like the 2026, because the play is told through several flashbacks. So you're not quite sure who's the actual focal point of the story, even though Angel is the protagonist, I guess, if there is one. So it's told through flashbacks from the public defender, and even the guard at Rikers, the two guards at Rikers. You hear about their perspectives on the matter. So I'm hoping that an audience takes away that these people exist, people that they may not experience in their everyday life. Right? Theater audiences, that is. And that redemption is possible. And it's not just about taking accountability. It's about trying to find hope. And we can all find hope in something, right? Even in the darkest of times right now. I guess that's the kind of art I want to make, right? Even I would like us all to go to those dark places and find the little pin light to try to get out. And I think we have to do that together. And that's what theater does for us.
All right. And that's a good place to leave it. Everyone, Jesus Hopped the A Train is on stage at Stagecrafters. You can go to thestagecrafters.org to get tickets, and that's tickets plural because theater is more fun with a +1. John, Carlos, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about this piece. Thank you, Dave, again for reaching out. And everybody, you want to get down there, if you're listening to this right now, it's open. So go see it. The show closes February 22nd. And if you see it, be sure to tag and help promote the show so that more people can get there and be part of this conversation. John, Carlos, Dave, thank you so much for chatting with me. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you. As always, Darnelle.